I'm Charles, 40, and my family has a long history of complications. Not the small, normal kind, but the kind where everything becomes a competition for control and attention, and someone is always trying to pull a fast one on everyone else. Over the years, I've learned that patience and quiet planning are my best tools, because if you react to every slight, you end up exhausted and outmaneuvered. This year, it was the annual family reunion. Every summer, my extended family gathers at my Aunt Muriel's property. Muriel is my father's sister, and she has perfected the art of making everyone feel small while presenting herself as the center of the universe. She treats the family like pieces on a chessboard, and she doesn't hesitate to sacrifice anyone if it boosts her image or gives her bragging rights. Her son, Ezra, is just as bad. Where Muriel is manipulative, Ezra is dramatic, entitled, and has a flair for theatrics that makes everything about him. He thrives on attention and has learned that whining loudly enough will bend most adults to his will. He's also surprisingly effective at gaslighting anyone who crosses him. Between the two of them, family gatherings have always been stressful, but I've usually kept my distance or quietly made sure things ran smoothly behind the scenes so no one would notice how much effort I put in. This year, I had an idea. I quietly arranged a catering service for the reunion. A full meal, everything organized to the last detail. I prepaid for it months ago, thinking it would be a way to keep some semblance of peace while also giving everyone a nice surprise. The best part was that no one knew I had done it. To them, it looked like Muriel or someone else had handled it, which meant she would have no room to brag. 2 weeks before the reunion, my phone buzzed with a group text from Muriel. I knew the tone before I even opened it. Sure enough, it read, "Don't bother coming to the reunion this year, Charles. You never contribute anyway." I stared at the message for a moment, letting it settle in. Most people would have snapped back in anger or gone into a long, defensive rant. I did neither. I had been planning this quietly for months, and suddenly, I realized the opportunity Muriel had given me. I replied casually, "Understood. I'll take care of it differently this year." No emojis, no explanations, just a calm, almost polite acknowledgement. The message was deliberately vague. She would assume I was hurt, confused, or maybe just passive-aggressive. Little did she know, I had already pulled the trigger on my plan. Over the next few days, I watched the family dynamics carefully. Muriel started dropping hints in the chat, expecting praise or concern. Everyone is counting on this year. It won't be the same without Charles's contribution. And Ezra chimed in, as predicted. Mom's right. Charles always ruins everything when he doesn't help. I let it go unnoticed. I didn't respond. Let them stew. Then, the morning of the reunion, I quietly called the catering service to cancel everything. Prepaid, non-refundable. Every dish, every table setup, gone. I didn't brag about it. I didn't announce it. I simply made it happen. By noon, the family group chat had erupted. Ezra sent a torrent of panicked messages, complete with crying emojis, pleading with me. Charles, please, you can't do this. People are already on the road. We told everyone the food was ready. Muriel, as expected, immediately turned it into a personal attack. I can't believe you would sabotage the reunion like this. I've done everything for this family, and this is how you repay me. I let it play out, observing every message, every subtle panic, every gasp of outrage as they realized I wasn't joking. Then my Uncle Harold, my father's brother, called me. Harold is usually the peacemaker, but he has a quiet sense of humor and an appreciation for irony. I could hear it in his voice, barely restrained. Charles, what did you do? He asked, almost whispering. Muriel is furious. Ezra is hysterical, and half the cousins are calling me wondering if the reunion is off. You didn't actually. I smiled and interrupted, calm and measured. I didn't cancel the reunion. I just changed how it's being handled. Harold paused, exhaling slowly. You know she's going to twist this into a vendetta against you, right? She already thinks she owns everyone's approval. This could get very messy. I let a long silence hang before replying. Let her. Maybe it's time someone else felt the chaos she usually causes. By mid-afternoon, the chat had descended into full-blown chaos. Ezra's messages were desperate and dramatic. Muriel was typing in all caps, demanding explanations, and a few of the cousins who usually try to mediate were getting anxious and confused. I watched silently as the family tried to pick up the pieces I had deliberately unsettled. And then came the message that really made me grin. Muriel, frustrated, snide, and entirely entitled, wrote, "If Charles isn't coming, I don't see why the rest of US should stay either. Maybe we'll just skip it this year." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Everything was unraveling exactly the way I had predicted. By the time the afternoon sun had fully settled in, the tension in the family chat had reached a fever pitch. Ezra's messages were relentless, almost theatrical in their despair. Every ping of my phone made me grin a little wider. "Charles, please, I'm begging you. This isn't funny. Mom is going to flip. The whole reunion is ruined." Muriel, of course, had followed up almost immediately. "How dare you? You've spent years pretending to care about family, and this is how you show it? You're selfish, inconsiderate, and completely impossible." I put my phone down for a moment, leaning back in my chair and letting the silence around me feel heavy. The chaos was unfolding exactly as I had anticipated, but I didn't need to do anything yet. I had created a situation where they couldn't fix things without acknowledging that I had quietly held all the cards. Then my phone buzzed again. Harold. He sounded strained, almost caught between trying to intervene and trying not to laugh. "Charles, you have no idea what you've done to them," he said, voice low. "Muriel is rewriting the guest list in her head, and Ezra, he's actually panicking about social media fallout. This is a full-blown meltdown." I smiled, sipping my coffee. Let them panic. They've spent decades making me feel like I'm the problem. Maybe it's time someone else experienced the frustration. "You're ruthless," Harold said, half laughing, half exasperated. "Ruthless, but impressive. Don't be surprised if she tries to turn everyone against you now." I didn't answer. Let her try. Let her weave her usual web of manipulation. She had done it countless times over the years, but this time, she didn't know she was dealing with someone patient, calculated, and quietly unflappable. Around 3 in the afternoon, I noticed a flurry of private messages from cousins who usually stayed neutral in Muriel's dramas. A few of them were confused, some scared, and some subtly curious. The messages were nearly identical. "Charles, are you actually serious about not coming? What's going on? Mom is furious, and Ezra is crying. Please tell me this isn't permanent." I typed a simple, casual reply to each. "I'll see how the day goes. Maybe it's better if I step back this time." The vagueness set them on edge, exactly as intended. They couldn't tell if I was angry, punishing, or simply indifferent. The uncertainty was more disruptive than any argument I could have made. Then, around 4 o'clock, I received a call from my father's youngest brother, Leonard. Leonard is the type who avoids confrontation at all costs, but he has a strange fondness for chaos when it doesn't directly affect him. "Charles, Muriel is losing it," Leonard said nervously. "She's threatening to cancel everything. Ezra is bawling, and some of the cousins are asking if we should even come at all. This is intense." "I'm aware," I said calmly. "Are you suggesting I intervene?" No, of course not," Leonard said quickly. "I mean, you could, but honestly, watching her panic is enlightening." I chuckled softly. Leonard understood exactly what I was doing without me having to explain. By 5 o'clock, the real storm had begun. Muriel called the group chat again, this time to try to organize a damage control meeting via video call. Of course, she was demanding that everyone explain themselves, but mostly she wanted someone to take responsibility for my actions, without actually acknowledging that she had provoked them. Ezra sent another flurry of desperate messages to me directly. "Charles, Mom is screaming at everyone. Please, you have to fix this. People are leaving. I can't handle this." I didn't reply. I let the panic simmer. Every minute I stayed silent, the tension grew. The family's carefully curated image of control was crumbling in real time, and they didn't know how to stop it. Then came the bombshell moment I had been waiting for. Around 5:30, I received a call from Harold again. This time, his tone was urgent. "Charles, you need to hear this. Muriel, she's actually considering not hosting the reunion at all. She's saying that without you, it's pointless. Ezra is crying in the background, begging her to reconsider. And here's the kicker. Some of the cousins are agreeing with her." I leaned back, letting the words sink in. Perfect. Every piece of manipulation she had spent years building, every ounce of entitlement she had hoarded like a trophy, was unraveling in front of her. And she didn't even realize who was holding the reins. Are you telling me she's blaming me for everything? I asked, trying to sound concerned. Exactly, Harold said, barely containing a laugh. She's framing it like this is your fault. And the worst part, she has no idea you canceled the catering entirely. I smiled a slow, quiet smile. Everything was going according to plan. I had created a scenario where her sense of control, her entitlement, her relentless need to dictate everyone else's behavior was now working against her. For the first time in years, she wasn't in charge. She was scrambling. And then it happened. The message from Muriel came through the group chat. Short, sharp, venomous, and perfectly entitled, just as expected. If Charles isn't coming, I don't see why the rest of US should stay either. Maybe we'll just skip it this year. The room seemed to go silent around me as I read it. Not literally, of course, but in my mind, the air held a tangible pause. Every one of them, Muriel, Ezra, and even some of the cousins who usually tried to mediate, had underestimated me. They assumed I would panic, react, beg, or negotiate. I didn't. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I simply watched, knowing the next moments would be crucial. Their entitlement had driven them into chaos, and I had carefully nudged the pieces into place. And then, just as I was about to set my phone down, a new message appeared in the group chat that made my heart race. Not from Ezra, not from Muriel, but from my Uncle Harold. Everyone stop. Listen, there's something Charles hasn't told you, and it's important. Whatever you think is happening right now, it's not what you think. I sat there, letting the words sink in. The tension was thick. The entire family had been running on assumptions, entitlement, and panic for hours, and now Harold had dropped a bombshell that could completely change the game. I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of the day settle around me. The house was quiet, the hum of the air conditioner the only background noise, but my phone kept buzzing like a heartbeat I could control. Every notification was a small victory. Every frantic message from Muriel or Ezra felt like confirmation that my plan was working perfectly. By late afternoon, Muriel had escalated from passive-aggressive texts to full-blown demands in the family chat. She had started tagging cousins, trying to rally support. Everyone listened to me. Charles clearly doesn't care about this family. If we're going to have a reunion, it won't happen without him actually contributing. I will not accept this disrespect. Ezra, naturally, followed up with a series of dramatic messages, some begging, some pleading, and some borderline hysterical. Mom is right. Charles is ruining everything. People are driving for hours, and now there's nothing. How can he do this? This is our special day. And then the subtle cracks began to show. A few of the cousins, the ones who usually deferred to Muriel's theatrics, started questioning things. Short, hesitant messages. Wait, Charles prepaid for the food? Didn't he say he was handling it? Maybe this isn't entirely his fault. Mom is overreacting again, isn't she? I could feel the shift starting. The panic and entitlement were still there, but doubt was seeping in. Muriel's carefully constructed narrative, that I was some ungrateful family member ruining everything, was starting to unravel in real time. By 5:30, I decided it was time to nudge things along. I didn't want to make it obvious, so I sent a simple, casual message to the group. Hey, everyone, just a heads up. I've got everything taken care of this year. Maybe not how you expected, but it's sorted. I didn't elaborate. I didn't explain. I didn't even hint at the cancellation. Just enough to set the suspense in motion. Almost immediately, the chat exploded. Ezra, sorted? What do you mean sorted? There's no food. Mom is freaking out. People are going to be here any minute. Muriel, Charles, this is not the time for games. I will not allow you to humiliate this family. Explain yourself right now. And then came the whispers, the private messages from cousins who had been watching silently. Charles, please tell me you didn't actually cancel the catering. Mom is losing it completely. She's pacing the yard, muttering about how she can't trust anyone anymore. Ezra is crying again. He said he can't even look at the driveway without panicking. I smiled quietly. They had no idea how deeply the trap had been set. All the panic, all the shouting, all the entitlement. It was exactly the chaos I had been planning for months. Around 6 o'clock, my Uncle Harold called me again. He had been watching the unfolding drama with a mix of horror and amusement. Charles, I don't know whether to thank you or ground you, he said. Muriel is screaming in the backyard. Ezra is sobbing. And somehow, some of the cousins are starting to take your side. It's remarkable. I leaned back, letting the sound of my own satisfaction fill the silence. You mean they're finally realizing what she's been doing for years? Harold laughed quietly. Exactly. And it's beautiful. She's so used to controlling everything that she doesn't even know what to do when someone else has the upper hand. By 6:30, I could tell things were about to hit the critical point. Muriel, sensing the collapse of her authority, had decided to take matters into her own hands. She began sending rapid-fire messages to everyone. If Charles isn't coming, then none of you should bother either. We'll cancel. I'll cancel the whole reunion. I don't care what anyone else thinks. Ezra, predictably, lost it completely. Mom, please, don't. People are driving hours. This is going to ruin everything. And then it happened. The moment I had been waiting for. A cousin, Lily, one of the usually quiet ones who had been sitting on the sidelines for years, finally spoke up. Her message was short, almost hesitant, but it carried weight. Mom, maybe Charles has been doing more than we realize. Maybe we should let him explain before canceling everything. The group chat fell silent. I could feel it. Muriel's control, her entitlement, her ability to manipulate the entire family was cracking. She was used to unquestioned loyalty, unquestioned agreement, unquestioned panic at her whims. And now, doubt was creeping in, slowly, almost painfully. Ezra, desperate, sent me a private message. Charles, please, just tell me what's going on. Mama's going to flip if she finds out what you actually did. I didn't answer right away. I let him stew, let him feel the panic he had so gleefully inflicted on others for years. It was poetic justice. By 7 o'clock, the tension had reached a crescendo. Muriel had started pacing the backyard, talking to herself, muttering about how she couldn't believe I would do this to the family. Ezra had barricaded himself in the garage, crying and typing frantically on his phone. A few cousins had begun calling me privately, asking for clarification, trying to understand what had really happened. And then, finally, Harold sent me a text that made my chest tighten with anticipation. Charles, be ready. Muriel just realized something. She's figured out that the catering is gone. She's standing on the porch, screaming that you've sabotaged everything. Ezra is inconsolable. This is it. The moment we've been waiting for. I smiled and set my phone down. The quiet in my own house was a stark contrast to the storm I had orchestrated. Every ounce of entitlement, every manipulative word Muriel had ever used, every tantrum Ezra had thrown, all of it was coming to a head. And they didn't even know the half of it yet. I knew I could step in, clarify, explain, but why would I? Let them implode. Let them stew in the chaos they had created around themselves. I had planned this for years, calculated every step, and now it was finally playing out perfectly. And then, a knock at the door. It was unexpected. I wasn't expecting anyone to arrive yet. They were still in the panic stage, some driving in confusion, some waiting for the reunion that might never happen. I froze for a moment, my hand hovering over the door handle. Another knock. Louder this time. Insistent. I glanced at the clock. 7:15. Too early for anyone to have arrived from out of town. Too early for anyone to be here on purpose without checking in. My phone buzzed at the exact same moment with a group chat notification from Muriel. Charles, open the door. We need to talk. Now. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch. The chaos outside, the panic in the chat, the entitled whining of the people who had always tried to control me. It all came together. And for the first time in years, I had the power to decide how this confrontation would go. I took a deep breath. Slowly I stood. Slowly, I walked to the door. And as I reached for the handle, I knew this was the moment where the family would finally see just how much I had controlled the situation, how carefully every move had been made, and how utterly unprepared they were for what came next. I paused at the door, hand on the handle, feeling the tension hum through the air. Outside, the sound of Muriel's voice carried faintly through the wind, shrill and demanding. Ezra was just behind her, pacing nervously, muttering in a loop about ruining everything and everyone hating me. I opened the door slowly, deliberately, and there they were. Muriel, standing with her shoulders rigid, chin high, glaring at me like she'd been wronged in the history of the universe. Ezra clutched his phone like it was a lifeline, wide-eyed and trembling. Charles. Muriel started immediately, her voice sharp. How dare you? This is unacceptable. Do you have any idea what you've done? I leaned casually against the doorframe. letting her rant wash over me without interruption. I had learned years ago that the moment I reacted, the power shifted. Silence and calm were my allies. What exactly are you talking about? I asked, finally, in a tone that was calm, almost lazy. The reunion? The food? The family drama? Which part? Muriel froze for a second. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. I could see the panic flicker behind her carefully constructed mask of entitlement. You don't pretend you don't know, she snapped. You canceled everything. The catering. You've ruined the reunion. Everyone is upset. People are driving hours for nothing. I prepaid it, I said, cutting her off smoothly, letting the words hang like a weight she couldn't bear. All of it. Every dish. Every table. Fully covered. Just not how you expected. The color drained from her face. Ezra let out a small gasp, and for the first time, I could see the realization dawn on both of them. They had assumed that I was careless, that I would panic, that I would be at their mercy. They had no idea I had been quietly in control all along. What do you mean? Not how we expected. Muriel stammered, her voice losing its usual edge. Charles, this isn't funny. It's not funny, I said slowly. It's just organized differently. You've spent years manipulating everyone, controlling every gathering, every conversation, every small detail, trying to make yourself the center of attention. And now, for once, you don't get to decide how things happen. Her eyes narrowed, shifting from outrage to confusion to a flicker of fear. You think this is some kind of power play? Call it what you want, I replied. I call it balance. You've spent decades deciding who contributes, who matters, and who doesn't. This time, I decided. Ezra stumbled back a step, still clutching his phone. Mom, he can't do that. He can't just ruin everything. You realize, I said, calmly, looking at both of them, that nothing is ruined. Everything is exactly how I intended. People are coming. The food is covered. Everyone is taken care of. But you? I let the pause stretch, watching Muriel and Ezra squirm. You're panicking because for once, you're not in control. Muriel opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. Her entitlement had always been her shield, her weapon, and now it was useless. Every manipulation, every calculated word she had used for years to dominate the family was ineffective. Ezra's lower lip trembled, and I could see him realizing that his dramatics, his theatrics, had failed to bend me. He had assumed that panic, crying, and pleading would work. It hadn't. And the rest of the family? Muriel demanded, her voice shaking slightly now. They're siding with you? I shrugged, casually, as if it didn't matter. Some of them are finally seeing things clearly. They're realizing the chaos you create, the pressure you put on everyone else, the way you've run everything like a dictatorship. For once, they don't have to. Her mouth opened again, but the words seemed to get stuck in her throat. I could see the wheels turning. Her carefully built image of control, her reputation as the family center of gravity, was slipping through her fingers. Ezra, desperate, blurted out, Mom, we can't let him do this. People will think we're crazy. He's manipulating us. And you're just realizing it now? I said, letting the words land like a hammer. You've been doing this to everyone for years. And now it's happening to you. Muriel's face was red, her hands trembling slightly, and I knew she was on the brink of losing it entirely. Ezra was pale, muttering something incoherent about, "This isn't fair," and I could hear the tension in the air crackle like electricity. Charles, Muriel finally whispered, the fight drained from her voice. What do you want? I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice, calm but sharp. I don't want anything. I just want you to understand what it feels like when you're not the one holding the strings. That's all. You've spent your whole life controlling everyone else, and now, you're in the position they've been in for years. She opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. Ezra looked like he was going to collapse, and the silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. I knew they were realizing, truly realizing, that for the first time in decades, they were powerless. And then, just as I was about to step aside and let them fully process it, Muriel straightened her shoulders, her face hardening. You think this ends here? She said, her voice low and dangerous. This isn't over, Charles. You've made a mistake. You can't just control everything and think we'll let you walk away unscathed. I smirked faintly. Oh, I'm not walking away. I'm staying right here, watching. Because you've built your whole life on entitlement, manipulation, and fear. And now, I let the pause hang, savoring it. Now it's your turn. Ezra shrieked, half in panic, half in despair, and Muriel's glare could have frozen the air. The family's delicate equilibrium had shattered, and I had set the stage perfectly. They had no idea how far this was going to go. And that's when the next part of the storm arrived. A car pulled into the driveway, the first of the cousins and extended family who had been arriving for the reunion, expecting a perfectly orchestrated event. But now, nothing was as expected. Muriel turned, realizing the first wave of family had arrived. Her face paled. Ezra staggered back, muttering, This can't be happening." And at that moment, I realized the true chaos was about to begin. Every entitled expectation, every long-held assumption, was about to collide with reality, and there was no way they could recover gracefully. I took a step back, watching the first family member cross the threshold, the tension building to a level that would change everything. And then, the front door opened, and the first voice called out, Where's the food?" The first cousin who arrived, Jenna, froze on the porch when she saw Muriel standing there, pale and frantic, Ezra trembling beside her. She glanced at me, then back at Muriel. Where's the food?" she asked cautiously. Muriel opened her mouth to answer, but faltered. She turned toward Ezra, who was wringing his hands nervously. It's coming. I mean, it should be." I stepped forward. Calm. Deliberate. "Actually," I said, voice slow, measured, "it's already taken care of." Muriel blinked, a flicker of hope crossing her face, only to have it fade instantly when she noticed my expression. What do you mean?" "I prepaid the catering months ago," I said, letting the words sink in. "Everything. All of it. Fully covered. But I canceled it. Non-refundable. So while you've been panicking, everyone else has been waiting under the assumption that I had everything handled. And now, the truth is," I paused for effect, letting my calm control contrast sharply with her frantic energy. "It's exactly as you feared. You weren't in charge, and for the first time, you're powerless to fix it." Jenna's eyes widened. "Wait, he did what?" Ezra flinched, muttering, This isn't fair." "Fair?" I asked, looking directly at him. "Ezra, your mother and you have spent years dictating everything, making everyone else feel small, scrambling to make yourselves the center of attention, punishing anyone who dares to act independently. Fair isn't part of your vocabulary. Chaos? Sure. Panic? Absolutely. But fairness? Not once." Muriel's face was red now, but not with anger. This was something else. Shock, realization, and a creeping fear. She had built her life on entitlement, and suddenly, it was all meaningless. One by one, the other family members arrived, their cars pulling into the driveway. They had expected a smooth, festive gathering. Food, laughter, the usual Muriel-controlled perfection. Instead, they found Muriel pacing, Ezra trembling, and me standing there calm as a lake in the middle of a storm. "Charles, what's going on?" Jenna asked again, voice careful. I gestured toward Muriel and Ezra. "This," I said, "is what happens when entitlement runs unchecked for decades. This is what it looks like when the family realizes the person they've been trying to control has quietly been holding all the cards." A few cousins began murmuring among themselves. "Mom, she's overreacting again," one whispered. Another added, "I think Charles, he handled it." Muriel spun on them, outrage flaring. "Don't talk to me like that. None of you know what you're saying. He's ruined everything. This reunion is." "Exactly," I said, cutting her off smoothly. "Ruined by entitlement, fear, and mismanagement. And now, you get to experience what it feels like when your assumptions don't hold, when you're not in control, when your manipulations fail." Ezra whimpered, clutching my shoulder slightly, seeking reassurance. Or maybe an ally he knew he would never get. I shook my head. "Not this time, Ezra. You've spent years watching others scramble to follow your mother's whims. Now it's your turn to watch, powerless, as the family navigates chaos without your interference." The cousins, realizing the truth, began quietly organizing themselves. A few had snacks in their cars. Someone had drinks. Others started setting up chairs. Slowly, a genuine gathering began forming. Without Muriel dictating every move, without Ezra panicking, and without me ever lifting a finger beyond the quiet cancellation and my measured words. By early evening, the reunion was underway. It wasn't perfect, and the catered food never arrived, but there was laughter, conversation, and even a bit of warmth. The family, minus Muriel and Ezra, was actually enjoying themselves. They realized for the first time that they didn't need Muriel to orchestrate every detail. As for Muriel and Ezra, they were in disarray. Muriel sat on the porch, arms crossed, glaring at the gathering she had thought would be her stage. Ezra wandered the lawn, muttering complaints, flinching at every burst of laughter from the cousins. Their entitlement had not only failed them, they were humiliated in front of the entire family. Later that night, I spoke to Harold privately. "You were right," he said, shaking his head with a wry smile. "They have no idea how far ahead you were. This was perfect." I nodded. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting or confrontation. It's letting them implode under the weight of their own entitlement while you quietly set the pieces in motion. By the time everyone left, Muriel and Ezra were exhausted, defeated, and visibly shaken. They realized that their manipulation, their constant need to control, and their dramatics could no longer dictate how the family operated. For once, they were powerless observers. The rest of the family quietly thanked me, half in relief, half in awe, for handling things. They didn't understand all the details, they never would, but they saw the result. And that was enough. By the end of the night, the reunion had been a success in the most ironic way possible. No catered food, no Muriel-approved schedule, no Ezra theatrics controlling every conversation. Yet the gathering had turned into something genuine, something real. Muriel and Ezra were left to simmer in their anger, entitlement, and failure. The family would remember this year, not as the perfect reunion Muriel imagined, but as the year she learned her control was an illusion. And me? I walked home that night, quietly satisfied. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't shamed them publicly. I had simply let them confront the consequences of their own long-term behavior. For once, the villains of the family didn't get their way. For once, their entitlement and manipulation didn't dominate. And for once, I could enjoy the calm knowing that I had orchestrated it all from the shadows, perfectly, patiently, and ruthlessly. The situation now is simple. Muriel and Ezra are sidelined, humiliated in their own home, and powerless to control the family dynamics anymore. The rest of the family has started to see me in a new light. Competent, calm, and not someone to manipulate. And I finally had the reunion I wanted. Peaceful, genuine, and on my terms. No apologies were offered. No forgiveness was given. The villains had played their hands, and they had lost. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you like this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.